So my wife Megan and we finally did it. We bought our first house. It was one of those big life-affirming moments, you know. We'd been saving for years, living in a cramped apartment that smelled like our neighbor's cooking. This house was in a neighborhood called Willow Creek, and it was the kind of place you see in movies. Perfect lawns, kids on bikes, white picket fences. It was almost a parody of suburbia. We moved in during the first week of October, and we learned very quickly that Willow Creek takes Halloween extremely seriously. I'm not talking about a few pumpkins and a skeleton on the door. I mean full-on, Hollywood-level yard haunts. Our next-door neighbor on the left had a 12-foot-tall skeleton and a whole pirate ship-themed display. The house across the street had a fog machine going 24/7 and a zombie apocalypse thing. It was a lot, but we were excited to be a part of it. We were the new couple, and we wanted to fit in. Our neighbor to the right, though, was a different story. His name was Mr. Griswold. He was an older guy, probably in his late 60s, and lived alone. His house was immaculate, but his yard was bare. No decorations, nothing. He was polite, but quiet. He'd give you a little two-finger wave if you saw him getting his mail, but that was it. Megan and I just figured he was the one normal guy on the block who thought the Halloween stuff was ridiculous. We were wrong. On the morning of October 30th, we woke up, and it was like a movie set had been dropped on his lawn overnight. It was, without exaggeration, the most incredible display I have ever seen. He hadn't done a theme like zombies or pirates. He had transformed his entire front yard into an old-timey rustic harvest scene. He had bales of hay, antique farm equipment all rusted and creepy looking, and dozens of corn stalks tied up into bundles. And the scarecrows. He must have had 20 of them. They weren't those cutesy ones with flannel shirts and straw hats. These things were terrifying. They were huge, lumpy figures dressed in rotting burlap, their heads just big, misshapen sacks. Some were tied to crosses, others were just standing. They were so realistic, so disturbing, that they made the 12-foot skeleton next door look like a kid's toy. The whole neighborhood was talking about it. Griswold did it again, I heard the pirate ship neighbor say. Apparently, this was his thing. He waited until the very last second, then unveiled his masterpiece. Halloween night came. It was perfect. Cold, crisp air, a little bit of fog rolling in. Megan and I sat on the porch, handing out candy. The street was a sea of tiny vampires and superheroes. And the main attraction, of course, was Mr. Griswold's yard. Kids would dare each other to run up and touch one of the scarecrows, then sprint away screaming and laughing. Griswold himself wasn't out. His lights were off. A few kids rang his bell, but no one answered. We just figured he loved the decorating part, but hated the actual people part, which, honestly, I kind of respected. Around 8:30, the crowd started to thin out. Megan went inside to make some hot chocolate. I was still on the porch, checking my phone, when a little girl dressed as a witch, maybe 8 years old, walked past Griswold's house. She stopped and just stared. I didn't think much of it. Kids were doing that all night. But then her father, who was with her, tried to tug her hand. "Come on, honey, let's go." And the girl said in this tiny, clear voice, "Daddy, that one smells funny." Her dad laughed it off. "They all smell funny, sweetie. It's old clothes." He pulled her along, and they were gone. But it stuck with me. That one smells funny. I looked over at Griswold's yard. The fog was thicker now, swirling around the legs of the scarecrows. The street was quiet. I stood up and walked to the edge of my lawn, right where it met his. Which one? They all looked the same. Horrifying, lumpy burlap sacks. And then I caught it. A smell on the wind. It wasn't the smell of rotting pumpkins or autumn leaves. It was coppery and sweet, a thick, spoiled meat kind of smell. A new scarecrow had been added, one I hadn't noticed before. It was set back a bit, near his porch, half hidden by a big bundle of cornstalks. It wasn't on a cross. It was just sitting on a bale of hay, slumped over, as if it were exhausted. It was bigger than the others, and the burlap sacking on it looked wet, darker. My heart started to do this stupid, fast thump, thump, thump. I'm just standing there staring. My wife calls from the doorway. "Hey, you want whipped cream in this?" "Yeah, sure," I called back, not taking my eyes off the figure. "What are you looking at?" "Just Griswold's new scarecrow. It's really something." She came out and stood next to me, holding the mugs. She sipped hers. "Oh, wow. That one's gross. It looks so real." It did. It looked too real. The head was a big, lumpy sack, just like the others. But it was tilted at an angle that looked wrong, like it was too heavy. "That little girl was right," I muttered. "You can smell it from here." Megan's nose wrinkled. "Ooh, what is that? Did he put, like, spoiled meat in it for effect? That's taking it too far." That had to be it. It had to be. This guy was a Halloween psycho, a haunt enthusiast. He was all about the realism. He probably got some butcher's scraps to make it more authentic. But I couldn't shake this cold, awful feeling. We went inside. We locked the doors, turned off the porch light. The night was over. We went upstairs and got ready for bed. But I couldn't stop myself from looking out our bedroom window, which had a perfect top-down view of Griswold's yard. And the scarecrow was still sitting there, a dark, lumpy shape in the moonlight. I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that slumped-over figure, that too real figure. At 2 o'clock in the morning, I was wide awake. Megan was sound asleep next to me. "This is stupid," I whispered to myself. "It's a prop. It's a bag of leaves and some spoiled meat." But I had to know. I had to. I slipped out of bed. I put on my shoes. I grabbed a high-powered flashlight from our knitstand. I went downstairs, unlocked the back door, and slipped out into my own backyard. It was dead silent. The entire street was asleep. All the pirate ships and zombie animatronics were powered down. The fog had settled, coating everything in a cold, wet layer. I walked through my side yard, my feet silent on the wet grass. I got to the low picket fence that separated our properties. I stopped, my flashlight off, and just listened. Nothing. Just the buzz of a distant streetlight. I stepped over the fence and onto Mr. Griswold's lawn. My heart was in my throat. I felt like a criminal. But I had to see. I walked toward the porch, toward the figure on the bale of hay. The smell was overwhelming now. It was the smell of a slaughterhouse. I put my hand over my nose and mouth. My flashlight beam pointed at the ground so I wouldn't alert anyone. I was 10 feet away. 5 feet. I stood right in front of it. It was much bigger up close. It was wearing a huge, filthy canvas work coat. The hands were just straw and twigs, crudely tied to the sleeves with twine. It was just a prop. I felt a wave of relief and also a wave of stupidity. I was a grown man in my neighbor's yard at 2 a.m. because a little kid said a Halloween decoration smelled funny. I was about to turn and leave, but I had to see. Why did it smell so bad? I lifted my flashlight. I braced myself. I shined the beam directly on the lumpy sackcloth head. It wasn't a sack. It was skin, pale, bloated. It was a man's face, but it was so ruined, So disfigured, it looked like a lumpy bag. His eyes were gone. His mouth was a black, gaping hole. The burlap was just a mask. Or, no, not a mask. It was a hood, pulled down over the head, but it had been soaked through with fluids. I didn't scream. I couldn't. My breath just stopped. I stumbled back, tripping over a pumpkin. My flashlight beam flew up, off the face, and onto the chest. The canvas coat was unbuttoned, and the chest beneath it was open. It was a cavern. It was hollowed out. All the insides were gone. It was stuffed, like a goddamn scarecrow, stuffed with straw and dry leaves. I finally found my voice, and I let out this choked, gagging sound. I scrambled to my feet and ran. I vaulted back over the fence, fell onto my own lawn, and just lay there, hyperventilating, staring at the sky. My porch light flipped on. Megan was at the door, her face a mask of sleepy confusion. "Tim, what are you doing? Are you okay?" I couldn't form words. I just pointed. I pointed, my hand shaking so hard I could barely aim. The scarecrow. She looked. She couldn't see what I saw. Not from that distance. "What?" "Tim, you're scaring me. Call 911, I whispered. My voice was gone. "Megan, call 911, right now." The next hour was a blur. The cops showed up. I was wrapped in a blanket on my own porch, my teeth chattering, trying to explain to an officer what I saw. I watched them walk onto Griswold's lawn with their big, heavy flashlights. I saw the moment they realized, the moment they shined their lights on the face. I saw one of them, a big, burly cop, physically turn and get sick in the bushes. They didn't just find one. Mr. Griswold's harvest was a masterpiece, all right. The scarecrows tied to the crosses. The lumpy figures standing in the corn. They weren't props. He was a taxidermist. But not for animals. He had been doing this for years. The cops said they found 12. Some were fresh, like the one on the hay bale. Some were old, just skeletons in burlap, tied to posts. He was a serial killer, and our neighborhood, our perfect suburban, Halloween-obsessed neighborhood, we gave him the best hiding spot in the world. We celebrated him for it. We gave him trophies. He wasn't home, of course. He was gone. He must have left right after he put out that last display. I don't know if they'll ever find him, but they tore down his yard, took every last piece of it away in black bags. The house is empty now, wrapped in police tape. We're moving. We put the house on the market last week. I don't care if we take a loss. I can't live here. I can't look at that empty lawn. And the worst part, the absolute worst part, the part I can't get out of my head. All those kids, all those happy, laughing kids, screaming and daring each other to run up and touch them, running their hands over those rotting bags, never knowing what was hidden just underneath. When I was in college, I was constantly, desperately broke. You know how it is. Ramen noodles, checking the sofa cushions for gas money, the whole deal. So when a high-paying, one-night gig popped up, I jumped on it. My advisor, Dr. Collins, had a last-minute emergency. He and his wife had to fly out of state on Halloween, and their regular sitter had bailed. He was offering $300 cash for one night to basically just sit in his house and make sure his 10-year-old son didn't burn the place down. $300 to eat free pizza and watch horror movies? Sign me up. The catch, if you could call it that, was the house. Dr. Collins wasn't just comfortable. He was wealthy. His house wasn't in a neighborhood. It was in the hills, about 5 miles outside of town, up a long, winding road where the houses were hidden behind acres of trees and iron gates. I drove my beat-up '98 Civic up this driveway. It felt like it was a mile long, completely surrounded by dark, dense woods. The house itself was insane. It was one of those ultra-modern places, all glass and sharp angles, like something out of a magazine. It was beautiful, but it was also a fishbowl. Floor-to-ceiling windows made up like 80% of the walls. Dr. Collins and his wife met me at the door. They were nice, if a little stressed. They gave me the whirlwind tour. This is Leo. This is Mark. Mark's one of my best students. Leo was a good kid. A little quiet, but he was psyched to have a college guy hanging out instead of his usual high school sitter. Okay, Dr. Collins said, grabbing his bags. Emergency contacts are on the fridge. Alarm code is 1234, I know, I'll change it later. We don't really get trick-or-treaters up here. It's too far out. So you shouldn't be bothered. Order any food you want. Our card is on the counter. We'll be back tomorrow afternoon. Just keep the doors locked. And then they were gone. The first couple of hours were exactly what I expected. Easy money. Leo and I ordered a mountain of pizza and wings. He showed me his video games. I showed him some stupid videos on my phone. We made a deal. He could watch one R-rated horror movie if he didn't tell his parents. We settled on Scream, a classic. We were in the living room. This room was massive, and like I said, one whole wall was just a sheet of glass, looking out onto a dark, empty patio and the black woods beyond. We were deep into the movie, right at the part where, well, you know, the phone's ringing. It's tense. And then our own doorbell rang. Leo and I both jumped. He looked at me, his eyes wide. I laughed it off. Chill, man. It's probably just, I don't know, the wind? It rang again. A long, insistent ding-dong. I thought your dad said you don't get trick-or-treaters, I said. We don't, Leo whispered. I paused the movie. The silence of the house was suddenly heavy. I got up and walked to the entryway. The front door was solid wood, but there was a little peephole. I looked through it. Nothing. Just the empty, well-lit porch. Nobody's there, I called back to Leo. Just some kids doing a ditch and dash. It's Halloween, man. It's what they do. I went back to the sofa. I hit play. But the vibe was broken. I kept glancing at the door. About 10 minutes later, it happened again. But it wasn't the doorbell. A tap. It came from the giant glass wall behind us. We both froze. Leo looked like he was going to cry. Okay, not funny, I said, my voice louder than I meant it to be. I was annoyed. These kids were really committing to the prank. I stood up and walked to the glass sliding door. I cupped my hands around my eyes and peered out into the darkness. I couldn't see anything beyond the reflection of the living room. Get out of here, I yelled, trying to sound tough. I'm calling the cops. I heard a giggle, a high-pitched, faint giggle from the side of the house. They're just trying to scare us, I told Leo, who was now sitting cross-legged on the sofa, clutching a pillow. They're harmless. But as I said it, a new sound started. A slow scrape, like fingernails or a branch, being dragged along the outside of the house, moving from the living room window around the corner towards the kitchen. Okay, I've had enough of this, I muttered. I was genuinely angry now. These rich kid brats were ruining my easy money night and scaring Leo. I went to the front door. I'm going to go out there and scare them off, I said. Don't. Leo squeaked. It's like the movie. It's not like the movie, Leo. It's just a bunch of high schoolers. I flipped on the exterior porch light. I braced myself, then pulled the heavy door open and stepped outside. The cold air hit me instantly. All right, guys, joke's over. I yelled into the darkness. Very funny, go home. And then, one of them stepped out from behind a big pillar by the garage. My blood turned to ice. He was wearing a mask. One of those blank, white, smiling purge masks. He was tall, dressed in a dark hoodie, and he was holding a baseball bat. I'm standing there, in the doorway, my heart hammering. He just stood there, 20 feet away, staring, not moving. That's not funny, man, I stammered. You need to leave, now. He didn't say anything. He just lifted the bat, slowly, and rested it on his shoulder. And I saw it. It wasn't a plastic prop from a Halloween store. It was a real wooden Louisville slugger, and it had barbed wire wrapped around the end of it. My brain just short-circuited. That's not a prank. That's a weapon. Leo, I said, without turning around, my voice a strained whisper. Go to your room. Lock the door. And call 911. What? Go, I screamed. The figure with the bat took one slow step toward me. I slammed the door. I fumbled with the deadbolt, my hands shaking so hard I could barely get it to turn. I heard Leo sprint down the hall. Mark, he yelled. They're at the back door. I spun around. Standing on the patio on the other side of the glass wall were two more figures, both in masks. One had the God mask, the one with the cross on the forehead. The other had a simple, grinning female mask. They were just standing there, watching me. The one with the God mask was holding something, a brick. He just smiled. At least the mask did. And with a casual, underhand toss, he lobbed the brick at the window. It didn't shatter. This was reinforced, expensive glass. But it hit with a thud that shook the whole wall, and a spiderweb of cracks erupted from the point of impact. This is real. This is not a prank. This is a home invasion. I ran from the living room, down the hall, and grabbed Leo. Where's the phone? I don't know, he cried. I left my cell upstairs. C-R-A-S-H, a different sound. From the kitchen, the sound of glass shattering. They must have found a normal window. They were inside the house. I could hear them, footsteps, and laughter. They were laughing. Okay, hide. We have to hide, I said, my mind racing. Where? This house was all open plan. No closets in the hall. My dad's office, Leo said, pulling my hand. Come on. We ran down a separate hallway toward the master wing. He pushed open a heavy oak door into a study. It was dark, lined with books. In here, he said, and ran to a huge built-in bookshelf. He grabbed the edge and pulled. A whole section of the bookshelf swung open, revealing a dark, narrow space. A panic room. Of course they had a panic room. Get in. I shoved him inside. It was small, metal-lined, with a single bench. I stumbled in after him and pulled the heavy door shut. It closed with a soft, final thunk. A deadbolt clicked into place automatically. We were in total, absolute darkness. I could hear my own breathing, ragged and loud. Leo was crying, these silent, terrified sobs. It's okay. We're safe, I whispered, though I had no idea if we were. And then we heard them. They were in the office, just outside our hidden door. Where'd they go? A voice said. It was muffled, but clearly a young guy. A teenager. Check the bedroom. Another one yelled. We heard them smashing things in the office, tearing books off the shelves. A heavy thump as one of them must have run into the real bookshelf, the one we were hidden behind. My heart stopped. He hit it again. What's this? I put my hand over Leo's mouth. I held my own breath. It's just a wall, Nan. Let's go. They're probably in the attic. The footsteps receded. We heard them move on, their voices getting fainter as they went through the rest of the house, smashing, yelling, laughing. They were tearing the place apart. I fumbled in my pocket for my phone. My hands were shaking so badly I dropped it. I picked it up, the screen lighting up the tiny, dark space. No service. Of course. A metal-lined box. We had no choice. We had to just wait. We sat there in that black, silent metal box for what felt like an eternity. We heard them for at least 20 minutes. A symphony of destruction. Glass breaking, furniture being overturned. At one point, I heard them turn on the stereo, blasting heavy metal music. And then, silence. The music stopped. Are they gone? Leo whispered, his voice trembling. I said. We waited. 10 minutes. 20, not a sound. Maybe they got bored. Maybe they took what they wanted and left. I had to know. I'm going to look, I whispered. No, just for a second. I'll just crack the door. We have to know if it's safe. My hand was on the deadbolt. I turned it as slowly, as silently as I possibly could. Click. I pushed the door. It opened a tiny 1-inch crack. I put my eye to it. The office was dark, but I could see the hallway light. And I could see movement, a figure, standing in the hallway, facing away from us. It was the one with the bat, the purge mask. He was just standing there, waiting. It was a trap. They knew we were in the house. They were hunting us. I pulled the door shut, my entire body numb with a new, cold terror. I didn't even bother to relock it. It didn't matter. He knew. He must have heard the click. I know you're in there, the voice hissed, right outside the door. It was no longer a laughing teenager. It was cold, dead. Something hit the bookshelf door. Hard. He was hitting it with the bat. The solid wood was splintering. A small crack of light appeared. Leo was screaming now, a high-pitched, hopeless wail. I pushed him behind me, against the back wall of the panic room, and I braced myself against the door, my feet slipping on the metal floor. The back broke through. A hole, the size of a fist, appeared. I could see an eye, behind the white, smiling mask, looking in at us. He laughed. A short, ugly, barking laugh. He put his hand through the hole, fumbling for the inside latch. And that's when we heard it. A siren's. Getting closer. Louder. The fumbling stopped. Cops, let's go. A different voice yelled from down the hall. The eye disappeared. I heard footsteps running. I heard the new sound of the front door being smashed open and shouting. Not the intruders. Police. This is the police. Show us your hands. Get down. I waited until I heard the shouting outside on the lawn. I threw the panic room door open and dragged Leo out into the hallway. The house. I don't even have words for it. It was destroyed. Every piece of glass. Every painting. The sofa was slashed. Trick or Treat was spray painted on the wall in red. A cop, his gun drawn, rounded the corner and saw us. Are you two okay? Are you hurt? We were fine, physically. They caught all three of them. They were in the yard, trying to get to their car, which they'd parked down the winding road. The rest of the night was a blur. The police, the parents, flying back in on the first possible flight, their faces pale masks of horror. But here's the part this is the part I don't tell most people. As I was sitting on the bumper of an ambulance, wrapped in a blanket, I saw them. The cops were putting the three kids in the back of a squad car. They had the masks off. They were just kids, 16, 17 years old, from the high school in town. One of them, the one who'd had the bat, the one who'd stared at me, he looked over. He saw me watching, and he smiled. Not a purge mask smile, a real one. And he mouthed a word at me, just one. Soon. The police told us later that it wasn't a random robbery. They found a list in their car, a list of all the rich houses in the hills. And they found zip ties and gas cans. It wasn't a prank that went wrong. It was a home invasion that got interrupted. That Scream movie? We were just the opening scene. They weren't just there to smash things. They were there to wait. I dropped out of Dr. Collins' class. I left that university the next semester. I couldn't stay. I still have nightmares about that smiling, blank, white mask. But the nightmare that wakes me up in a cold sweat is the real face. The real kid, smiling at me as a cop pushed his head down into the car. This was my first Halloween as a single dad. The ink on the divorce papers was barely dry, and I was living in a small, two-bedroom apartment that still smelled like new paint and old carpet. My main goal in life, at that point, was just damage control, trying to make sure my 7-year-old daughter Lily felt like her world wasn't completely falling apart. So for Halloween, I was determined to make it perfect. I wasn't going to be sad, divorced dad. I was going to be fun dad. Lily, thankfully, was all in. She had a princess costume she'd been planning for months, and she was vibrating with excitement about trick-or-treating. We were just going to hit our new apartment complex and the surrounding neighborhood. It was safe, familiar, well lit. As I was helping her with her plastic crown, she said, "Daddy, we have to go to the special house." I paused. "The special house? What's that, sweetie?" "It's the best house," she said, like it was obvious. "My friend Chloe from school told me. They don't give out little candies. They give out the big, full-size ones, and maybe even toys." I smiled. Every kid has that urban legend, right? The one magical house that gives out the full-size Snickers. Well, we'll keep an eye out for it, Pumpkin. But let's hit our street first. The first hour was perfect. Exactly what I'd hoped for. The air was cool. The neighborhood was full of other families. And Lily's plastic pumpkin bucket was getting satisfyingly heavy. She was all smiles. I was feeling okay. For the first time in a while, I was genuinely okay. We got to the end of our main block, and I started to steer her back toward our apartment. "All right, kiddo, that's a pretty good haul. What do you say we head back and—" "No." She stopped, her little face set with determination. "We didn't go to the special house yet. Chloe told me how to get there." I sighed. "Lily, it's getting late. And I'm not sure Chloe's special house is real." "It is real," she insisted, her lower lip starting to tremble. "Please, Daddy? I know the way. It's close. Please?" I looked at that face, and I caved. What was the harm? Another 10 minutes. "Fun dad," I reminded myself. "Okay, Your Highness," I said, offering her my hand. "Lead the way. But if it's a wild goose chase, you owe me all your Reese's." She giggled and grabbed my hand, pulling me past the corner where we would have turned for home. We walked 1 block, then 2, into a part of the neighborhood that was still familiar, but quieter. The houses were older, set further apart. Then she stopped at the corner of a street I'd never seen before. That should have been the first red flag. I'd lived in this town for 8 years. I'd jogged these streets. I'd driven them. I had never, ever seen this street. It was called, I don't even remember. Something simple like elm or oak, but it was dark. The street lights were that old, buzzing, sickly yellow kind, and they were spaced really far apart. And there was no one on it. No kids, no parents, no porch lights, no decorations. It was like a dead zone. "Lily, I don't think this is it," I said, a little knot of unease tightening in my stomach. "This street looks empty. Let's go back. We're almost there." She chirped, and she tugged her hand free and skipped ahead, right under the flickering streetlight. "Lily, wait for me," I called, my voice suddenly too loud in the oppressive silence. I jogged to catch up with her. The further we walked, the colder it got. I don't mean just autumn cold. I mean the air felt heavy and damp. The houses on this street were all dark. No pumpkins, no skeletons, not even a single light on. It felt wrong, abandoned. "Lily, this is the last house, and then we're turning around," I said, my fun dad voice completely gone. "This isn't safe." "It's right there," she said, pointing. At the very end of the street was a cul-de-sac, and in the center of the cul-de-sac stood one house, all by itself. An old 2-story Victorian, the kind with the pointy roof and the wraparound porch. And unlike every other house on this dead street, this one was lit up. It had a single bright yellow light on the porch. And on the porch steps, there were dozens of pumpkins, all carved with these intricate, smiling faces. It looked incredibly welcoming. Lily let out a squeal of delight. "See? I told you." She sprinted up the walkway before I could stop her. I had no choice but to follow, my feet feeling like lead. A part of my brain was screaming, "Get her. Get her and run." But I couldn't. It was just a house. I was being paranoid. As Lily got to the top step, the heavy oak door creaked open. An old woman stood in the doorway. She was perfect. She looked exactly like a storybook grandma. Silver hair in a bun, a kind, wrinkled apple face, a flowery apron. She wasn't dressed as a witch. She was just a grandma. "Well, hello there," she cooed, her voice like warm milk. "And who is this beautiful little princess?" "I'm Princess Lily," my daughter announced, holding up her bucket. "Trick or treat?" "Oh, you've come to just the right place," the woman said, her smile broadening. She hadn't even looked at me. I was standing 10 feet back, at the bottom of the steps, completely frozen. "We don't have all that store-bought rubbish here," the woman continued, bending down. "We have something much, much better." She held out a beautiful, carved wooden bowl. It wasn't full of Snickers or toys. It was full of cookies. Each one was shaped like a little person, wrapped in a small piece of wax paper and tied with a simple black string. They looked homemade, old-fashioned. "Just one, dear," the woman said, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "That's the rule. One per child." Lily, absolutely enchanted, reached her little hand into the bowl. She picked one and held it up like a trophy. "Thank you. You are so very welcome, my sweet," the woman said. And then she lifted her head, and her eyes found mine in the dark. She was still smiling. That same kind, apple doll smile. But her eyes were not smiling. They were black and empty and hungry. It was a look of pure, ancient malice, and it was aimed right at me. It broke the spell. "Lily!" I yelled, and I bounded up the steps in 2 strides. I grabbed Lily by the arm, pulling her back so hard she stumbled. "We have to go, now. Daddy, you're hurting me." She cried, confused. She dropped the cookie. I didn't care. I snatched her up, throwing her onto my hip. I didn't say thank you. I didn't say goodbye. I just turned and ran. "Do come back next year." The woman's voice called after us, still sweet, still kind. She was my favorite. I didn't look back. I sprinted down the walkway, my heart trying to escape my chest. The second my feet hit the main sidewalk, all the lights went out. The porch light on the Victorian house, the sparse yellow streetlights, every single one. The entire street was plunged into absolute, total blackness. I have never run so fast in my life. I ran, holding Lily tight against my chest. She was screaming, crying now, not understanding, just terrified, because I was terrified. I ran, expecting to feel a hand on my shoulder, expecting to hear footsteps. But there was nothing, just silence. We burst back out onto the main road, back into our familiar neighborhood. It was like passing through a wall. Suddenly, there was light. There was noise. Kids were laughing. A car drove by, playing music. I collapsed against a lamppost, hyperventilating, still clutching Lily. She was sobbing into my shoulder. It's okay, Daddy's got you," I gasped, over and over. "It's okay." I carried her all the way home. She cried herself to sleep, and I sat on my sofa in the dark for hours. The next day, I tried to make sense of it. I had to know. I looked up the street on Google Maps. It wasn't there. The street we had turned onto. On the map, it was just a solid block of woods. A park preserve. There was no street. No cul-de-sac. No Victorian house. I thought I was losing my mind. I called Chloe's mom. I asked her, trying to sound casual, "Hey, Lily mentioned Chloe told her about some special house for trick-or-treating. Do you know what she was talking about?" There was a pause. "No," she said, confused. "Chloe was with us. We just went around our block. She never mentioned any special house. Why?" I mumbled something about a misunderstanding and hung up. I was ready to check myself into a hospital. I was convinced I'd had a waking nightmare, a stress-induced hallucination. But then, I was cleaning up. I was dumping Lily's candy out onto the table to check it for safety, but really just to make myself feel normal. And there it was, at the bottom of her plastic pumpkin, under the last of the Starbursts and Tootsie Rolls. A small wax paper-wrapped cookie tied with a black string. She hadn't dropped it after all. Or maybe the woman had put it there. My blood ran cold. I stared at it for a full minute. My hand was shaking. I picked it up. It felt hard and light. I had to know. I untied the string. I unfolded the wax paper. It wasn't a cookie. It was. I still don't know what it was. It was a small, gnarled, dark brown object. It looked like a dried-up bird's heart. Or a human thumb bone. I threw it and the wrapper into the kitchen trash, and then I took the trash bag outside to the dumpster in the middle of the day. It's been 3 weeks. I thought it was over. I thought I could just forget. But last night, I was tucking Lily into bed. She was half asleep, her eyes drooping. She mumbled, "Daddy?" "Yeah, Pumpkin?" "The cookie lady." She said to say hi. I froze. What cookie lady, Lily? From the dark street, she whispered, already drifting off. She visits me in my dreams. She says I'm her favorite, and she's so excited for next year. And that's all for tonight. Remember, the most terrifying monsters are the ones that look just like us, the ones who might even live right next door. If these stories serve as a good reminder to trust your instincts, then show your support and like and subscribe. Hitting that bell means you'll get a warning before the next nightmare begins. Sleep well if you can.